Trailblazers win it! Wow!
Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!
What's up, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to Party on Broad. Today we are talking Saddiq Bey. We're talking his strengths. We're talking his college career. We're talking about his weaknesses, and we're talking the best fits in the NBA. Joining us today is my man Austin. Follow him on Twitter at CurlTPL and check out the Feed to Embiid. You can follow them on Twitter at the Feed to Embiid. What's going on, dude?
I need a haircut. I really need a haircut. It's getting bad. I might have to go put a mask on and go to a barber shop at some point this next couple of days, because I know that as thick and curly as this is, it's just I can't do it myself.
Oh man, so I think that, except for me, man, nah, it ain't happening. Also joining us today is my man Thiago. Follow him on Twitter at tscabia. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I spent last night breaking down Sixers Charlotte from 2018, so I think it's
I
time
watched
for
that game too.
Yeah,
I watched that game too. Yeah.
I think it's time for basketball to return, man, because it's dire straits out there.
I missed it for sure.
So if you're new to the Painted Lines YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. The Party on Broad pod can be found on iTunes and Spotify, as well as the Feed to Embiid. Find that anywhere you find your podcasts. But let's talk Mr. Saddiq Bey, the home of Austin Krell, his baby, Villanova University. So today we are going to just recap his, college career and, what does it mean moving forward in the NBA. According to Rivals, Saddiq Bey was a 4-star small forward recruit out of Sidwell Friends in Maryland. The same school, Sidwell Friends, that Josh Hart went to, which is pretty cool. He received offers from Davidson, Florida, and Georgetown, then signed with North Carolina State, and then parted ways with North Carolina State and moved on to Villanova in June 2018. Despite being the lowest ranked recruit on the team, Saddiq Bey was one of the best freshmen. He started 17 games. He led all freshmen in games, minutes, scoring, assists, and steals. He was 4th on the team his freshman year in scoring. He averaged 8.2 points per game on 6.6 field goals per game. So when you start off any Saddiq Bey conversation, you talk about that giant leap his freshman to sophomore year. That progression was absolutely wild. He was a unanimous all Big East selection. He was a finalist for the Julius Erving Award, and he was on the ballot for the John R. Wooden Award. He averaged 16.1 points and 4.7 rebounds per game. Austin, you lived and breathed this guy. What was your take?
Yeah, you certainly don't have many guys who had a meteoric rise after their freshman year the way that Siddiq had. I mean, he burst onto the scene last year as a major contributor on a team that was pretty, I guess, short of talent, especially after considering what they had done the previous year, where they dismantled everybody. So he rose up and sort of elevated his play and emerged as a leader in the future of the program. And this year he had a phenomenal year, 16.1 points per game, 47.7, 45.1, and then 76.9 slash across the field goals and free throws. So he's efficient. He's a really good shooter, and he has some growing left to do. Keep in mind he's only like 20 years old. 19, 20 years old. And every part of his game was an improvement, up 8 points per game. His free throws his rebounding was down a little bit sophomore year, probably attributable to the fact that Villanova had an actual big man this year. But assists up, everything else was pretty much up. He's a really, really interesting prospect. And I think his sophomore season, especially as a shooter, really caught the eyes of a lot of NBA scouts for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about his strengths. First one to me, I love his defensive versatility. Saddiq Bey has that positional versatility and should be able to defend 3s and 4s at the next level. He doesn't have elite athleticism, but he's not a true defensive stopper by any means, but he's got size, he's got length. He's got everything he needs to be an above-average defender in the NBA. And just you watch this guy; he has a real ability to defend the perimeter, and he's made really big stops during his sophomore year at Villanova. Thiago, what's the strength of Saddiq Bey?
Sure. So you kind of mentioned the growth, and Austin touched on it as well. I think that when you play in Jay Wright's system and you want to find playing time, you better be a team-oriented guy, and you better be a guy who's willing to pass the ball. And I think out of most of the prospects that come out of Villanova, Saddiq Bey is probably one of the guys who have actually really taken that mantra on. So if you watch his game, I think it's really an unselfish style of game. He's constantly passing the ball. He's constantly moving, and the ball rarely sticks with him. So if you think about a team who's looking at that type of philosophy, I think Saddiq Bey fits exactly that mode of a player. And I think it really helps his offensive game. I mean, you guys talked about his shooting. A lot of his three-point shooting comes off him making that extra pass and relocating to an open spot on the court, and not so much playing like a hero ball style of basketball. So I think for me, the number one thing is the selfishness and the willing to play within a team infrastructure.
Go ahead, Austin. Is there a strength of Saddiq Bey you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he's a very high IQ player, and he will make plays for both himself and others. And I think he's a guy who you can rely on to be that closer down the stretch. And I think a pretty telling component of his mental toughness and his decision making is the fact that Jay Wright entrusted him to make game-winning plays for Villanova this year and make the right play. So I do think one of his main strengths is that he knows where his spots are. He knows when the team needs a bucket, he can get to his spot. Right. And you don't see a lot of you don't see him errantly jacking shots. I think he's a very well groomed shooter, and I think his efficiency reflects a guy who knows when to shoot and knows when the shot isn't there.
I'm really glad you brought up the efficiency, man, because this guy has a really quick release. He can get a buckets in a myriad of ways. He can pull up mid range. He can thrive in the catch and shoot. He can abuse mismatches in the post. There really isn't much Saddiq Bey can't do on the offensive end, but obviously this guy's a phenomenal shooter. None of us touched on it, but 45.1% from three with a true shooting percentage of 60.8% as a sophomore at Villanova. He took 6 3-point attempts per game as a sophomore and shot 37.4% from three as a freshman. So this is a great shooter, probably one of the best in the draft class. He had a 45.1 3-point percentage, which was tops in the Big East and number 4 in the entire NCAA. And he had the 4th most 3-point field goals made and the 4th highest shooting percentage in the Big East. So this guy is a flat-out shooter, man. Let's talk a little bit about his weaknesses. Go ahead, Austin.
So I think one thing I will say is that he's at times a little passive. Like you wonder why, he's happily deferring to some teammates, and I get it. In college, the defenses were sort of queuing on him, and it's going to make the looks that he gets a little different. But I would like to have seen him be a little more aggressive at times. Maybe look to use his physicality and his body to get to the rim, protect the ball, and then kiss it off the glass, or to find to bully his way to the free throw line area or the elbow area and get a shot there. Another weakness that I think I see in him is that I don't know that I buy his ability to be this marksman at the next level. A lot of his shots were catch and shoot, and not like the kind that shooters like JJ Redick have. It was more on the lines of, I'm spotted up, it's like catch it and just go. Whereas with JJ coming off screens, you're using footwork, you're one dribble pull ups. So I think of the NBA, the looks are going to be different, and I don't know how his shooting translates in terms of the airspace and the type of rhythm he'll have to get the shot off.
Go ahead, Thiago. Any weaknesses?
So I'm going to give you guys some numbers, and I want you guys to think about this for a second.
Here we go.
Love it.
Here we go.
2 games against Creighton, 7 for 23. Against Kansas, 3 for 8, 7 points. Against Ohio State, 1 for 8, 2 points. So When you watch him in those games, I think the playbook on Saddiq Bey, if you're a defending team, is make him put on the ball on the ground and make him dribble. And I actually went to the game where he played Creighton here in at Philadelphia, and we will talk about this guy later. There's a guy called Tyshawn Alexander who plays for Creighton, and he made Saddiq Bey's life like an absolute nightmare. I mean, he was in his face the entire time, made sure that he never got a chance to get that shot off. And you could really see how much it bothered him to have to put the ball on the ground, dribble out of pressure situations. So I think if I'm an NBA team and I'm looking to scout Saddiq Bey, the first thing I'm going to go to directly is, turn him into a dribbler, turn him into somebody who's not going to comfortably sit in the corner and shoot up shots. So I think his next level at the NBA game is going to be working on that handle, working on that dribble, and seeing how he progresses from there.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. When I think of Saddiq Bey and a weakness, I go to his limited athleticism. This is a guy that doesn't have a super quick first step. He doesn't have the burst that you want from an NBA wing. So I don't, like you said, you touched on it, Thiago. He's not a guy that's going to beat you off the dribble. So any team that's looking to draft this guy could never expect this guy to be a go-to scorer in ISO situations. And because of that limited athleticism, you should never expect him to be this superior on-ball defender. This guy is not going to be able to defend the elite wings in the NBA. And let's talk a little bit about best fits. Personally, I'm just not sold on the talent in this lottery. And I think what makes Saddiq Bey so interesting in this draft, he's one of the safest picks in this lottery. And he's a plus shooter. He's got a ton of versatility. He's just a safe bet. And in a lottery filled with guys that can't shoot are kind of mysteries. I think Saddiq Bey has a real chance to go really high. And I'm talking top 10.
I agree. I don't know about that.
I disagree.
I think he's this is one of those guys that's gonna rise up. Even if there are private workouts, we don't even know if that's gonna happen or not. But I could see this guy just impressing teams in private workouts with his shooting, and a team, rolling the dice on him. Thiago, what's a best fit for Saddiq Bey?
So I don't think he's a top 10 talent at all. I mean, I'm glad you see it differently, but for me, I'm looking more towards the middle to the end of that, between that 10 to 20 range. And a team that I look at is a team like New Orleans, the Pelicans. And the reason why I say that is you're probably looking at a team that's trying to surround Zion with as much shooting as he possibly can. And I'm thinking, you have Zion as like a power forward ball handling type player who can really play off the drive and set up Siddiq through a myriad of different ways. So I think the Pelicans in that middle of the first round is probably a better fit for Siddiq and more value for New Orleans as well.
Now, go ahead, Austin. You have a best fit for Saddiq Bey?
So yeah, I really do agree with Thiago about the fact that that I don't see him as a top 10 pick. I think you could make that pick, and you might not necessarily have been wrong about it, but I think that there are guys who will be available there in the top 10 who you might not want to forego for the sake of Saddiq Bey. I would say that a team like Minnesota makes a lot of sense for me.
Sure.
They shot 44.1% from the field and 33.6 from the three-point range. So there's not a lot of cohesive fitting around Cat, and I think now with a legitimate point guard who has elite court vision in D'Angelo Russell, adding a wing to the mix with Jarrett Culver already there could make a really interesting scenario for Minnesota. I mean, they flat out. One of the reasons they were bad, other than having a lot of discourse this year and having a bunch of odd fitting veterans with the young guys, was because they didn't have the right offensive pieces around Cat. And then when Cat went down, it was all up in smithereens. Adding a shooter to that mix is really important for them, and I think he would be a good fit.
I do. I agree. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are a great fit. They have the 3rd and 16th picks in this year's draft, so they're going to have a couple cracks at them. Do they trade down from the 3rd pick? Probably not. But yeah,
do they take him? Do they take him top 3? And Deibs is looking at us like, you fucking idiots.
No.
They took a guy last year, Jarrett Culver. He can't shoot, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you look at Towns, you look at D. Russ. They're going to have a ton of offensive firepower on that T-Wolves roster. So a little positional versatility could go a long way. for Saddiq Bey with Minnesota. The team I'm looking at, man, is the Portland Trailblazers. That team played with a gaping hole at the wing. They lost Rodney Hood. They did well filling in with Carmelo and Trevor Ariza, but man, moving on, they currently have the 14th pick in this year's draft. I think that's great value for Saddiq Bey in that range, and they could look for a guy that can kind of catch and shoot alongside Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. I think that's a really good fit for a wing like Saddiq Bey on the Portland Trailblazers, and of course the Sixers, guys. Come on, man! If there's a guy to trade up for the Sixers, Saddiq Bey is definitely on among the top of this list. The Sixers need shooters. Come on, how do you like Saddiq Bey's fit with the Sixers, Thiago?
He's got a high Mike Muscala potential. That's a good Mike Muscala. It's on the
what?
Because I don't know, Muscala had some rough moments here, but overall, I think he's a pretty decent shooter. But yeah, it could go either way. I like it. I wouldn't necessarily think it would be a terrible pick. I just think that the Sixers need a little bit more dynamic within a dribble. So I'm not so sure it's a great value for the Sixers.
What about you, Austin?
So I will say this: the last 3 drafts, the Sixers have had an opportunity to take, or not the last 3, but I think from the 2017 draft, so the year that Josh Hart went, and then the 2018 draft, the year Bridges went, they had a chance to take a Villanova Wildcat, and I think the only one I was excited about was the prospect of adding Mikal Bridges because I thought he was a perfect fit. I'm not a big guy. I'm not big on drafting Villanova guys because I feel like I see too much of them, and I would like some unicity and a new look. I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense. That's just how I am. I think there's a fit there. I don't know that he's worth trading up for, and I definitely don't think he's going to fall to you at 21. I actually do like your pro comp for Rod. I think you sort of didn't realize it, but you gave me a pro comp for Saddiq. Rodney Hood, I think, is actually a really good comparison for him. Mike Muscala is a weird one because Mike Muscala shot 34% from 3 in Philly and was largely horrible. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Sixers would make sense for anybody who could put the fucking ball in the basket from more than 5 feet outside the paint. Yeah. But I don't know that I'd trade away assets to go up and get him.
Sounds good. All right. That is the Austin Krell. Follow him on Twitter at KrellTPL. Check out the Feed to Embiid, which covers everything from the Sixers and the NBA. That is the Feed to Embiid on Twitter. Follow my man, Thiago. He is T Scabia on Twitter. For Austin, for Thiago, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid gets posterized. Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell